There is a particular kind of blindness that happens when you live with something long enough. The yard outside your window right now looks normal to you. It looks maintained. It looks like a yard that is being taken care of. And in most cases, the homeowner is genuinely putting in the time and the money to keep it looking that way. But normal and current are not the same thing. And what reads as a well-maintained yard to the person who has lived with it for 20 years reads very differently to someone seeing it for the first time. What they see is a collection of design decisions made in a specific decade that never got updated. Not a neglected yard, a frozen one. The chain garden centers and commercial landscape companies that shaped American residential yards over the last 40 years did not install timeless design. They installed whatever moved product that season. Dyed mulch, plastic edging, matching foundation shrubs pruned into identical balls, topiary animals, decorative wishing wells. They sold the trend and moved on to the next one, and the homeowner was left maintaining a look that peaked the year it was installed and has been quietly aging the property ever since. This is a list of 15 of those trends. Some of them you have already pulled out. Some of them you walk past every single morning without seeing them anymore. And at least one of them is almost certainly sitting in your yard right now, making the entire property look 15 years older than it actually is. We start at 15. Number 15 is topiary animals. The clipped boxwood bear, the yew shaped like a rabbit, the juniper pruned into something that was supposed to be a peacock and now looks like a green cloud with intentions. Topiary animals had their moment in American residential gardens from roughly 1970 through the early 1990s. The look filtered down from English estate gardens and landed in suburban front yards as a signal of craftsmanship and taste. A well-maintained topiary in a front yard in 1978 was a genuine status object. It said someone lived here who cared about details. What it says now is that someone planted this in 1978 and has been maintaining it out of habit ever since. The look has aged the way avocado green kitchen appliances aged. It does not read as classic. It reads as a specific decade. And unlike avocado appliances, which you can replace on a Tuesday afternoon, a topiary that has been sheared for 30 years has an interior that is bare wood all the way through. Restoration is not really possible. The path forward is removal and replanting. Replace it with a single specimen plant of distinctive natural form, a dwarf weeping spruce, a Japanese maple, a corkscrew willow. One annual pruning instead of 6 monthly shearings. A plant that reads as a deliberate design choice, rather than a maintenance obligation that outlived its era. Number 14 is the decorative wooden wishing well planted in the middle of the front lawn. The kit came from the hardware store. Someone assembled it on a Saturday afternoon in 1974 and placed it near the driveway as a charming focal point. And for about 3 years it was exactly that. Then the wood started weathering to gray. The shingles curled, the rope handle frayed, and the thing that was once charming became the thing that makes visitors quietly calculate how long ago the yard was last updated. The wishing well arrived with companions, the gazing ball on the metal stand, the ceramic deer, the porcelain frog near the hostas. All of them were sold as personality. All of them date a yard within seconds of being seen. The focal point they were meant to provide is better delivered by a single flowering tree. A Japanese Stuartia, an eastern redbud, a witch hazel that blooms in February when nothing else in the yard is doing anything. The tree provides visual interest across every season, adds genuine property value, and does not require anyone to repaint it every 5 years to keep it from looking abandoned. Number 13 is decorative scalloped edging. The plastic strips with the curved tops running along the front of the foundation bed, the precast concrete sections with the wavy profile. This trend ran from 1980 through about 2005, and at the time, it was sold as a softer alternative to straight metal edging, something that gave the bed a finished look without requiring professional installation. The scallop shape echoed Victorian cast iron edging and brought a sense of ornamental detail to the front of the house for about $12 at the hardware store. What it does now is announce the decade the bed was installed more precisely than almost any other single element in the yard. The plastic versions fade to chalky off-white within 2 seasons and crack through the first hard winter. The concrete sections chip at the corners and heave progressively out of alignment as the ground freezes and thaws year after year. Pull it out, recut the bedline with a half-moon edger, a clean 3-inch vertical cut following the natural curve of the bed. No ornament required. The cut line reads as confident and intentional in a way that no plastic strip ever managed to achieve. Number 12 is mass annual bedding. The carpet of identical petunias or marigolds or impatiens planted in a tight grid across the entire front of the foundation. This was the professional landscape company playbook from the 1970s through the 1990s. Arrive in May with 2 flats of matching annuals, plant them in a grid pattern, return in October to pull everything out. The look was bold and colorful and read as professionally maintained. It also cost the homeowner several $100s twice a year and delivered a result that now reads as institutional. The planting style of office parks and hospital entrances rather than a private residence. A mixed perennial border planted once for $50 delivers color across a longer season, requires no annual replanting, and looks genuinely established rather than freshly installed by a contract crew. 3 to 5 species chosen for staggered bloom times and textural contrast will still be producing in year 15 without anyone writing another check in May. The annual bedding grid is the most expensive way to achieve the least timeless result available to any gardener right now. Number 11 is the residential flagpole installed as the central design element of the front lawn. The pole itself is not the problem. The flag is not the problem. The problem is the specific landscaping decision that surrounds it. The circular bed of red, white, and blue annuals arranged as a frame with the pole as the only real anchor in an otherwise undeveloped front yard. The landscape is built around the pole because nothing else in the yard is strong enough to hold the visual weight that a centerpiece requires. If the flag matters to you, keep the pole. Move it to a corner of the property and build an actual landscape around a more appropriate central element. A small flowering tree, a layered shrub planting with varying heights, a perennial bed that has structure in winter as well as color in summer. The flag flies from a corner bracket near the front door on the days it should fly. The yard reads as designed. Both things are true simultaneously without one working against the other. Number 10 is the neon bright planter. The fluorescent turquoise pot. The lipstick red glazed urn. The electric orange ceramic container at the front entry. This trend ran from roughly 2010 through 2023, and it arrived through home improvement television and social media at the same time that maximalist interior design, bright accent walls, painted kitchen cabinets, bold front door colors was peaking across residential design culture. The bright planter was instant visual impact. A $200 turquoise glazed pot transformed a bare porch in 20 minutes and looked spectacular in photographs. What dates it is the speed of the color trend cycle. The turquoise that felt current in 2015 reads as dated in 2026 in exactly the way that avocado green read as dated by 1980. The color made a strong statement, and that statement is now about a specific moment rather than about the garden. Choose container materials that age into the landscape over time rather than against it. Terracotta that develops moss and patina, glazed pots in warm earth tones, weathered metal, cast stone. Let the plant in the container carry the color. A well-grown specimen in a neutral pot reads the same way in year 2 as it does in year 20. A neon glazed pot reads as a specific season on a home improvement network that no longer airs. Number 9 is the lone tree planted in the exact center of the front lawn with no other planting around it. The single maple or oak or ornamental pear sitting in open grass at the geometric midpoint of the front yard rectangle. This was the post-war developer's default landscaping decision. Set the house back from the curb, plant the tree at the midpoint, and let the open lawn do the rest. It looked orderly and intentional in the era when open lawn was itself the design goal. What reads as wrong now is the visual incompleteness. The lone tree on an open lawn looks like the yard never got finished, like someone started the landscaping and stopped at the first decision. The grass under the canopy thins, and the exposed surface roots get damaged by the mower season after season. The fix is not removing the tree. The fix is bedding the area under it from the trunk out past the drip line, mulching flat at 2 to 3 inches, never piled against the bark, and planting the shade below with hostas, heuchera, astilbe, hellebores, ferns. The tree becomes the anchor of a layered shade garden. The yard goes from developer-issued to designed. The same tree, completely different reading from the street. Number 8 is the mulch volcano. And this is the one trend on this list that is not just an aesthetic problem. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 8 you have already dealt with in your own yard. And tell me your state. The next 7 vary by region, and I want to know where everyone is gardening from. 8 trends down, 7 to go. And we are picking up at the one that does not just date your yard, it is actively killing what is growing in it. Number 8 is the mulch volcano. The cone of wood chips piled 12 to 18 inches up the trunk of a tree, tapering to a neat point at the bark. It is in almost every neighborhood in America right now. The chain landscape companies installed it for decades because it looks tidy from the road and takes about 4 minutes to create with a wheelbarrow. The crew shows up twice a season, dumps fresh mulch against the trunk, and leaves with the tree looking freshly maintained and the homeowner feeling satisfied. What is actually happening inside that cone is slow suffocation. Mulch piled continuously against tree bark traps moisture against the trunk without interruption. That constant moisture rots the bark. It encourages roots to grow upward into the mulch pile rather than outward into the soil, and those roots eventually wrap around the base of the trunk and strangle it from inside. The sustained moisture also invites fungal pathogens directly into the cambium layer, the living tissue just under the bark that the tree depends on to move water and nutrients from root to canopy. The symptoms appear slowly: sparse leaf out in spring, yellowing in the upper canopy, gradual dieback starting at the top and working down. By the time most homeowners recognize something is wrong, the damage has been building for 3 to 5 years. The University of Maryland Extension, Penn State Extension, and the International Society of Arboriculture have all published direct warnings against mulch volcanoes for more than 20 years. The landscape industry continued the practice because mulch is sold by the yard and volcanoes use more of it. Pull the mulch back from the trunk right now, today, not this weekend. The root flare, where the trunk widens at the base into the root system, needs to be fully visible and exposed to air. Spread the existing mulch into a flat ring extending to the drip line of the canopy, 2 to 3 inches deep, never touching the bark. The tree can begin recovering within a single growing season if the damage has not already reached the point of no return. If you see a cone on a tree in your yard, that tree is fighting for its life, and the fix takes 15 minutes. Number 7 is pressure-treated lumber in the orange-brown stain used for raised beds, retaining walls, and garden benches. The material ran through American backyards from 1975 through 2015 because it was cheap, available at every hardware store, and resisted rot for 15 to 20 years. The function was real. The problem is the visual signature. That specific orange-brown color reads as a construction site rather than a garden. By year 10, the wood has weathered into streaky gray-brown with cracking corners and splitting ends. The look announces the decade the structure was built with no ambiguity whatsoever. Cedar or composite lumber for new builds. For existing pressure-treated structures, a solid color exterior stain in charcoal, black, or weathered oak costs $40 and removes the dated color completely. The structure reads current. The function does not change at all. Number 6 is the bright white vinyl privacy fence enclosing the entire backyard. The material arrived in the 1990s as a genuine maintenance improvement over painted wood. No rot, no repainting, 20-plus years of service from a single installation. All of that remains true. What dates it is the color. Bright optical white is a hard plastic edge against the soft greens and earth tones of any mature planting. The modern fence aesthetic uses colors that recede: matte black, dark bronze, weathered gray, so the fence becomes a backdrop for the garden rather than the dominant visual element. For new installations, choose dark. For existing white vinyl, plant a screening hedge along the inside. Inkberry holly or upright native shrubs soften the white line within 3 growing seasons, and the fence disappears behind what is growing in front of it. Number 5 is river rock or lava rock spread across an entire foundation bed as permanent ground cover. The sales pitch was logical. Install once, never replace. No breakdown, no replenishing, no annual cost. The river rock, installed in 1982, is still sitting in the same bed today, which is precisely the problem. Weeds germinate in the dust between the stones within 2 seasons and are nearly impossible to remove cleanly. The rocks absorb heat through the day and radiate it back at night, raising soil temperatures well beyond what most ornamental plants tolerate comfortably. The look itself reads as 1985, regardless of what is planted in the bed. Pull the rock. Replace with 3 to 4 inches of natural shredded hardwood mulch. The soil cools, weed pressure drops, and the bed looks like a garden rather than a driveway with plants in it. Number 4 is plastic bed edging. The thin black or brown polyethylene strip with the rounded top running along the boundary between lawn and planting bed. It was sold at every hardware store from 1985 onward as a clean edge without the labor of recutting. The first season, it worked exactly as advertised. By the third winter, it had heaved out of the soil and started curling. By year 5, it sits an inch above the soil line in a wavy line that signals a yard that has not been actively redesigned in a generation. Pull it out completely. Recut the bed boundary with a half-moon edger. A clean 3-inch vertical cut following the natural curve of the bed needs redoing twice a year and takes 10 minutes per bed. It reads as deliberately designed in a way that no strip of weathered plastic ever will. Number 3 is the straight row of identical foundation shrubs pruned into matching round balls across the entire front of the house. Yew, juniper, boxwood, spirea. 1 species, 7 plants, identical spacing, identical shape, running wall to wall. This was the default front yard installation from 1960 through 2010, and it reads that way immediately. The cookie-cutter row signals developer-issued rather than personally designed. The fix is replacing the monoculture row with a layered foundation planting of 3 to 4 different species at varying heights. A small flowering tree anchoring one corner, a mid-height evergreen, a flowering shrub, a low ground layer plant at the front. The layered planting reads as a designed garden from the street. Maintenance is comparable to the matching ball row. The visual result is in a completely different decade. Number 2 is the over-wide grass path between planting beds. The 6 to 8 foot strip of mown lawn running between 2 borders that is wider than any path functionally needs to be and harder to maintain than either of the beds it separates. Most homeowners do not see this as a trend at all. The grass is just the leftover space between things that were planted at different times. But the proportions tell a precise story about when the yard was laid out, the era when lawn was the default for every space the homeowner had not specifically decided to plant. Narrow the grass paths to the width of 1 mower deck, typically 20 to 24 inches, and expand the planting beds on both sides. The narrower path is easier to maintain, requires less mowing, and reads as a deliberate design decision rather than leftover space. Replace it entirely with stepping stones and pea gravel, and the yard reads as a garden rather than a lawn with beds arranged around it. Number 1 is dyed mulch. The bright orange, the deep red, the jet black wood chips spread in matching color across every foundation bed from the front of the house to the back fence. This is the most universal trend on this entire list. Drive through any American suburb right now and you will see it on more than half the properties on the street. The chain garden centers push it as a premium upgrade. The commercial landscape companies install it in March and refresh it in October and charge accordingly. What is wrong with it is the color itself. Bright orange wood chips read as a chain garden center promotional season. Dyed red reads as a low-end commercial landscape contract. The matching color spread uniformly across every bed flattens the entire planting into a background of unnaturally saturated wood that draws the eye away from everything actually growing in it. The plants recede. The mulch dominates. And the color announces its own era with the same precision as avocado kitchen appliances or shag carpet. Switch to natural double-shredded hardwood mulch from a bulk yard. It costs roughly half the price of bagged, dyed product per cubic yard. It breaks down into the soil within 2 seasons and feeds the biology underneath. It reads as a confident landscape decision rather than a seasonal product placement. The plants in the beds come forward. The mulch disappears into the background where it belongs. The whole property looks 15 years younger from the street with one application. 15 trends, most of them fixable in a single Saturday morning for under $50. Pull the plastic edging, cut the bed lines clean, pull the mulch back from the trunks, switch to natural hardwood, replace the matching ball row with a layered planting. These are not renovations, they are corrections. Tell me in the comments which one you are fixing first, and drop your state. I want to see how far this reaches.